Ryan, hold on. We're connecting audio. Can you hear me? Check, check.
Hello, hello.
Ryan, I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear, man.
Woo!
Yeah.
Well, it is an absolute pleasure to see you over the screen here. You you want to jump right into it?
Um, yeah, I was thinking, if it's okay, that I just do a mantra at the start of it, which will just like bring a calm and a bit of a connection to the ocean with the listeners and with us. Does that sound like something that'd be cool? Get
That
things
sounds
going?
that sounds perfect. And so should I do a my quick introduction and then we go into that, or how would you like to sequence this?
Yeah, that sounds perfect, man. Yeah. And I checked the notes that you sent me, and that looks perfect. That'll be really
Yeah,
cool.
and we can kind of like jump around, ad hoc it. It's real loose.
Yeah, sounds great, man.
Excellent. And is there a
Cheers,
delay in me?
Sean.
Yeah, right. Sick. Is there a delay between me speaking and you hearing it?
Yeah, on my end there is. Yeah. What about your end?
Yeah, a little bit. So I'll just account for that in my brain.
Sure. Yeah. How's my
All right.
picture? Is it all good?
Yeah, man, you're looking really good. It looks like a beautiful day. Awesome. Sick
Nice, man.
house. Yeah. All right. Here we go. Hello, welcome to Speaking from Water, episode 32. I'm your host, Sean Ruttkay, and this is the podcast where we bring the most epic water legends to the fold. And I have an epic water legend with us on the line right now. So, you know, the surfing world has Kelly Slater, basketball has Michael Jordan, swimming has Michael Phelps. And bodyboarding has Ryan Hardy, and I have him here on the line. I'm super excited to be speaking with Ryan. Ryan is the basically the number one bodyboarder of all time, and he's here with us. Ryan, good day.
Good day. Stoked to be here. Really
Well,
stoked. Yeah. I mean, just to be a representative of someone that loves the ocean as much as anyone else, I feel, and just it means so much in my life. And it really seems like this channel is all about that. You know, a life devotion to the ocean and how much it brings to us on such a deep and really wide level. Yeah, so it's really cool to be able to have the opportunity to talk about this with you, Sean.
Ryan, that is the goal of this channel, and you have not really been on my top radar until a listener DM'd me, Aiden Salmon, and I interviewed his brother Kean Salmon a few weeks ago. He was in Ireland filming the giant slab, and they brought you up as just an ultimate guru of water. So I just did a deep dive into your life, your world. I consumed every piece of digital media that has your name on it, and bro, I'm absolutely blown away by what you've done, where you've come from, how you've transformed to this day. So it is a true pleasure to be with you, and thank you for taking the time to join us. And I understand you want to start today's session with a mantra, and I would like to hand it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Sean. Yeah. So basically, this is something recent that I've discovered. Just in the search for kind of fulfillment in life and especially with peace, living with the condition of bipolar and now having a family with 3 kids and life being pretty crazy and hectic. And it's not my old pro life of just chasing waves and contests around and good times. And I think just having spent so much time in the ocean, particularly, and getting older, I am feeling a deeper connection with things. And something I've spoken about with someone like my father, who spent 60 years in the ocean, is that as you get older, there's more simple satisfaction and enjoyment, and that's what I'm starting to find, is just to see it, the ocean, to be by it, to feel it. It brings such satisfaction on a very simple and basic level. And so, and then, you know, going beyond that, you can then go on to have the opportunity to find that simplicity and that enjoyment in the earth itself, you know, in nature. And it's as deep as you want to go, you know, the universe. And that's what this mantra is all about for me, and something I've discovered, to connect myself sort of out. It's what's within, but also reaching further than the human realm. So, you know, and for me, that is so calming, and it brings such a connection and a love and a joy for being alive and having this opportunity to connect with nature and the universe, and sort of make a connection with the mystery of being alive here. And so that's, yeah, what I'm going to lead into with this mantra, and hoping that it'll bring a calm to both definitely within myself, because it seems to bring calm and brings me out of emotions and maybe nervousness and anticipation. And I hope that for yourself and for the listeners, that it can bring this same calm and sort of bring us to a moment of slowing things down to just a level of peacefulness and a joy of just being alive and having the opportunity to connect with nature. Okay, so it's what I'd maybe ask the listeners and yourself, Sean, is just to, while I'm going through this mantra, which is a song, is to think of your favorite place in the ocean, your favorite beach, and perhaps not surfing the waves there, but just the presence of being there and the fulfillment of being in that place. Great. So I'll just sort of go through a couple of ohms to start with, just to slow my pace down and connect myself with the universe. A quick intro behind this mantra is it's an ancient Hindu mantra, which in its simple form is, it has two parts to it. So the first part is praising the sun or the universe for giving us life. And the second part is asking for its strength and its guidance in our lives. And it also has a religious tone if you're religious. So it's, you know, asking to praise God and asking God for the strength and the guidance. And being not religious myself, I just sort of translate it to something that I can relate to on that universal level. And so it's a praising to the universe, and in a more specific form, it can be a praising to the ocean for the joy and for the, you know, positive life that it brings us, and also asking for the strength and that positivity for what it gives us. Okay, so without rambling on much more, I'd just like to slowly go into this now, doing a couple of cycles of this mantra. Great. Om. Om. Bhuvaha svaha. Tatsavitu vareniyam. Bhargo devasya imahi. Dio yona prachodaya. Om Bhuvaha Svaha. Tatsavitu vareniyam. Bhargo devasya imahi. Dio yona prachodaya. Okay. that's me. Yeah. So that for me, it just it's said that that mantra is not so much about the words and the definitions behind it, but it's as much about the hum underneath the words and slowing things down in your personal tone with your connection between yourself and the world around you, the universe, to a certain pace which is in sync with the universal pace. So the sun's movement, the moon's movement, the movement of the oceans, the winds, the growth of trees, this universal hum of forward movement in time and space, and your own growth within that, and bringing a real central unifying feel to that. Yeah, and it gives me a real peacefulness. And when I often have tried, I've done it at the ocean the other day, doing that for 20 minutes, and then coming out of it with such a silence and connection that the sound of the waves, it just feels like that's me almost. It feels like I'm just really in sync with it, and getting a lot of joy from that, a lot of simple joy.
Well, it was very beautiful, and it brought me to a instant level of peace. Can I ask, where can one go to find the translation? And then follow up to that, how did you come to learn the mantra?
Yeah, good question. I've just started a stretch and meditation class locally, which is I've done the certification for foundation training, and so basically running the stretch class, and I've also done qigong, and just created my style, which is quite slowed down and bringing that peacefulness in a positive physical stretching class. And I really enjoy running slow, peaceful music through it, which helps to slow the body and the mind down and the breathing. And I came across this song, which I've heard before, and it was a woman singing it's called the Gayatri Mantra. And I just loved it. The moment I came to tears when I first heard it. It was just so emotional, the way she sings it, and had that really slowed down, beautiful pace. And then I just went on to Google and searched its definition and its meaning, and it just struck me straight away. It's like, whoa, that just really resonates with me. It at first was quite religious in its history of where it's came from. It's supposed to be one of the most ancient written texts of human history, that mantra. It's a Hindu mantra, yeah, from sort of Asia, I suppose. And I just, which I've often done, is looked at the text, which is religious, and transferred it to a connection and a meaning with the universe, as far as the universe being God, and just sort of simplified it for my own way, and also got creative with it to turn into something where I can praise the ocean and direct it towards the ocean. And it's got that two-way relationship of an energy circuit where you're giving praise and then you're also receiving it. And you really feel that when you connect with this mantra. And in the beginning, it was more of a learning of the words and being able to say it. And then once that became sort of automatic, then it was more finding the right pace and the connection with the environment around me, and really having a feel and an intention behind the tone. Yeah, but it's all on Google, the information.
So beautiful. For the listeners who might not know about your background, you went through a period of I guess mental rehabilitation, and I guess since we started with the mantra and going straight to the mind, I think maybe we should touch on that here at the beginning, because what I find so fascinating really about your story is you have this life where you are the best, like you are the top bodyboarder in the world for so long of a period, which when you're the best at something, that's a very egocentric place to be. And but you still seem, by watching you in those old clips, you're very in tune with the ocean, with what you're doing. You speak about it in those times as such. Then you go through a period, and I believe you even were hospitalized for a bit, and then you come out of that onto medication, as I understand, and then you then enter another phase of spiritual enlightenment. And this journey, I find, a, a lot of people can kind of connect with, because everyone has their own issues, and they're trying to deal with things, and people are telling them to do this and that. I guess break what I just kind of spelled out there in your own terms, and explain to me this journey you've been on.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. When I talk about it and like to explain it, I like to try and go below the sort of terms and words that kind of box things in, like when you're talking about a label of bipolar and psychiatric wards and institutes. I like to try and come below that and just talk about what my personal experience was as far as my emotions, my thoughts, my actions. So, yeah, basically the background of it was, well, my father has lived with a condition of just being kind of eccentric, and what else would you say? Just just different to the norm as far as his energy levels, his mannerisms, his social interaction. And I do believe that my condition is different, but it's definitely linked, So my experience was it with that. First of all, I have a twin brother, and he had psychiatric issues that came up years before me. 3 years before me, he had taken had a drug-induced psychosis where he'd taken meth at one point, and just sent him on a bit of a spiral where it almost sends you into this imaginative world in your mind, which basically takes over, and you lose track of what's reality and what your mind's perception is. And that's the point where your family around you, your friends, start to become concerned that you're not quite in control of your life's direction, your thoughts and your emotions. So that happened to him. He was hospitalized for quite a long time, so it was pretty serious. That was in 2004. And then 3 years later, in 2007, it was the year after I'd had my most intense competitive year. So there was a lot of pressure, a lot of emotions up and down, a lot of excitement. So things for me in my life in 2006, so it was the first time I was running for the world title. I had some of my biggest wins and most shattering losses. And so internally, my emotional spectrum was deepening. So, but prior to that point, I'd had, I was just a child, teenager, early 20s. Things were, stable relatively, getting regular sleep. I was healthy. Mind-wise, nothing was too extreme or off the grid, so to speak. I was very sort of passionate and obsessive, and I'd go very deep into things, and I was all in, with whatever I did, and particularly with bodyboarding. But that worked for me in a positive way, because it rocketed me through bodyboarding in how fast I progressed, in how well I did competitively, free surfing, doing videos, because I was so dedicated and applied and so driven and passionate and had the physical talent. So then 2006, with all this happening, towards the end of the year, it was like I was so revved up thinking about the world title coming up, the training, that suddenly it wasn't just I was hyped up during the day, I was also hyped up during the night. And so I wasn't getting a full sleep, and this sort of kept going for months. through the world title, got second place. So I didn't, devastating. So big emotions were going on, and I was feeling so much, and it was just very busy in my body and my mind, basically unstable. I'd say it was too often and day in, day out that my emotions were just going really up and down. And at that point, through that competitive year and through the start of the next year, it was manageable, and my mind and my emotions were not going to a place that I couldn't come back to center. So then going to 2007, I was continuing to have these high energy spells, and not sleeping through the night with really high energy. But it was all positive. I wasn't having any negative yet. I wasn't losing. I was still being able to come back to calm and back to center, and it wasn't anything unusual going on. I just thought, wow, I'm just got a lot of energy, and it's a bit annoying not being awake at night, but this is great and fine. And then it came to, I did a surf trip to WA with some friends of mine, and we had some really good surf, and I was catching up with my family. I was there with my wife, and things were going really well, and I was feeling really good. And then, and I was still having these sleepless nights. And then things started to rev up even more. As things revved up in my mind, and I was getting less sleep, emotionally, I was getting higher and higher. And then as I was getting higher emotions and racier mind, I'd be awake at night with so much energy in my mind running so fast that I'd start just writing notes and, starting to make plans around what's called delusions of grandeur, of just making plans of basically saving the world and creating organizations around, say, anti-drug organizations, creating all these organizations to basically make the world a better place, which is, seems positive, but it was just kind of big, endless rants that didn't really have a structure. And I was kind of keeping this all to myself. So I was still appearing calm and normal to a degree on the surface. And then, but it spiraled very fast. And within a couple of days, I was starting to listen to music by myself and getting so euphoric, as perhaps like doing ecstasy or a drug that takes you just to incredible heights of feeling love and wanting to pursue, crazy, risky things. And because I was keeping it all with to myself, I wasn't talking about these extremes with anyone. Eventually I did with my wife, but I wasn't talking about it with anyone. So in my mind, I was starting to come up with reasons to why this was happening, because I wasn't receiving any mentoring by people that had been through this to sort of understand what these feelings and thoughts were about. So I was all left to myself and my own mind's devices to create reasons as to why this was happening. And so this started to go into the delusional. So I started to think that I was evolving as a person, as a human. I started to have thoughts like I was the reincarnation of Jesus Christ, that I was getting all this energy and having all this loving emotion because I was becoming this spirit, that I was the spirit. I was seeing image human race to evolve us to become the aliens of the future. So things started going into the imaginative at a very extreme level. And then eventually I talked to my wife and told her about these things that I was believing and thinking and feeling, because I just felt incredible emotions of positive, incredibly physically energized. And then I started to say things like I was telepathic and telling her she has to go to the beach at a certain time and asking her to think of numbers, and that I would be reading the numbers in her head. And she became concerned, and she called my mum, And my mum knew straight away that I was experiencing similar things to what my twin brother had been through. And so she straight away said, okay, Ryan, I think it's time to take you to the place where Brett went, to the psychiatric ward. And at this time, I was feeling amazingly positive. I had all this energy, all this positive energy, positive emotions. I was going surfing all day with the boys. I was up just about all night writing all this stuff about, bringing love and plans to the world to end negative things. And so when my mum came to me, there was a little bit of fight, a little bit of a shock of, oh, but wait a minute, I'm on this grand plan and I'm flying high. Why is this happening? But part of me also trusted her, that she'd followed Brett through this, and I trusted her guidance and her experience enough to say, yeah, okay, let's take you to this place. It's for a reason. I was still, obviously really high, just going with it. So when I got to the psychiatric ward, that they, hit me with a lot of slow down drugs, medication that slowed me down enough to reflect on these thoughts I'd been having and the emotions, to realize, and also with my mum's encouragement and people around me that were aware of what was going on, to realize, okay, that's a bit outside of basically sanity, of rational thinking, stable emotions, that my sleep patterns were not conducive to a healthy lifestyle. And yeah, so I spent just a week in there, enough to slow me down, because I wasn't too far out of, I wasn't a danger to people. I wasn't a danger to myself. I was just starting to spiral to the irrational, and I needed slowing down. And then from there, I had 6 months off and spent a lot of time with my wife and my family to try and work it out. Okay, what happened? What's this part of me? Trying to understand that and trying to find stability from there forward. Yeah. So thanks for listening. It's quite a long rant, but that's my experience with mental illness and what that means underneath that, inside of that word and that term bipolar, inside of that was my emotional, mental, and physical experience. Yeah.
So very interesting. So it's important to note here that unlike your brother, you weren't on any other substances that brought you to this place. It was kind of just part of your biochemistry and lifestyle that took you there. And the fact that when you're that you didn't fight, it doesn't sound like you didn't push back that hard about getting the help you needed. It was like there was a level of acceptance, and I think a lot of people who might struggle with similar things might be the biggest barrier, is getting the help they need. And could you just kind of say something about that?
Yeah, definitely. That is a huge barrier, is being inside of it and thinking that you're in control, and thinking that all your thoughts and feelings are rational, and just being a bit stubborn and thinking that you're all good, that there's reasons why all this stuff's happening. Because when you're inside of it, it's somehow I think it always happens kind of gradually, and you just think it's a part of you, and there's nothing wrong with you, basically. And that's very common. So it was definitely fortunate that, well, A, my twin brother had been through it first, and that B, my mother and my wife were able to recognize what was going on early in the piece. But yeah, you're right. There's definitely a lot of stories around people kind of refusing help or feeling that there's nothing wrong with them, and that's quite often a big problem for their people around them that care for them and are concerned. Mm.
How's your brother today?
Yeah, he's great. He's you know, definitely had periods over the years since he first came on where it's been a struggle, and it's just really a journey of managing what the certain way that it affects you, you know, your thoughts, your feelings, what triggers you, your sleep, how your sleep affects your mental and physical health. And you know, each person in each case is unique and different to the next. You know, so our experience is not the same, um, and so we have to manage it in a way that works best for us as far as lifestyle, medication, um, and connection with physical activity, nature, and just particularly how much you can take on, because obviously it's the triggering stress, the being getting too wound up and revved up, and not getting enough slow down or calm time that can, you know, send you spiraling into bad health.
That's so interesting, that bit of the stressful part, because people, especially in where I live here in America, it's like grind, grind, grind. And I think I've lived in Australia for a little bit, and there's a different ethos and culture in your country of taking time for the self. You know, taking a vacation for a month. In you know, in America, if someone takes a vacation for a week, they feel guilty. So it's like, we have more health problems here because of that. Uh, I want to touch back on this here in the future, but right now I'd like to go back to the beginning, if that's okay. You're from
Sure.
you're from WA. I would like to know
Yes, yeah, from Margaret River.
what's your earliest recollection of the beach and you being just in awe of the beach. You mentioned your father was a surfer, or is a surfer. I assume you grew up by the water. It was probably at a very early age, but when did you really feel the love?
Well, definitely the first time I probably specifically felt the love for riding a wave and bodyboarding was probably 6 years old at one of the beaches down here, where it's a nice shallow sandbank and you get a good ride in the whitewash. And so it was my dad pushing me in on a snapped foamy board, the white cool lights, I think they were called. Yeah, and just the feeling of the power of the wave pushing me, and the holding on for life, and then the feeling of the speed over the water. Um, that was just, it's just so strong in my memory. You know, particularly the feeling of the power and the speed and joy of the ride at that age. Yeah, that was definitely the moment of, wow, this is so much just crazier and more intense and more joyful than anything else I'd tried to experience at that point in life.
And then what was the next step for you? Were you like, oh, I'm going to be the best in the world at that point, or what was that trajectory? Was school a factor? How did your life play to the point from then to getting into competitions and just starting to kill it?
Yeah, sure. So from six, it was quite slow because in Margaret River in the southwest, the winters can be really rough and rainy and cold, and so a lot of young kids around here get into sports. You know, football, soccer. So for me, for years, probably for 4 years, I was playing sports just as much or more than I was surfing, bodyboarding. Probably going back around that the age of 6 to 8, I also rode my dad's surfboard quite a bit, like again in the whitewash or the shallow reef, and I was really enjoying that as well. That was really a really good feeling and good fun doing that with my brothers. And then when we're about 8, we first got the Max 77s, and so that was the moment where bodyboarding, for some reason, just seeing the bodyboard, the colors of it, the feel of it, that was really attractive to me. That really, to me, it just felt better than the feel of the surfboard, the ride of the surfboard. It just seemed more fun, more joyful. Like I definitely loved both, but for whatever reason, I was more attracted to the boogie board, to the Max 7, and the excitement around that. And then so from there was mostly bodyboarding from 8 to 10 with no flippers, just on this little sandbank, the shore breaks. Again, still a lot of sports, just a little bit of beach time in the summertime more here and there. And then by 10, my older brothers were getting pretty into it, starting to get to a good ability. The magazines and videos were starting. And so the excitement was starting around then. There was no big plans or massive aspirations, but there was definitely excitement about it. And I remember my dad going to the sports shop and getting me my first flippers, my first fins when I was 10. And that was definitely where I felt I became a bodyboarder. I felt that, oh wow, now I can paddle out the back and I can catch these bigger, faster waves on my Max 7. And that was sort of the launch of my obsession. And then so that started to become more exciting than the sports I was doing the tennis, doing the hockey. But my mum's quite disciplined and encouraging of me to keep doing the sports, sort of against, I really wanted to just bodyboard, but I still like the sports. So I kept doing the sports through till 12. And about 12 was when I did my first competition. It was a competition in Perth. It was a pro-am, so it was pros and amateurs there. And I remember seeing some of the professionals at the time from Australia, Steve Bullitt McKenzie and Winger, and seeing these guys riding waves, and they were just going so fast. And of course, it was the bodyboarding that just excited me, and was just so much more exciting than these other sports I was doing. And then doing the competition was the same. I was so amped up. I just loved it. The excitement of it, the pushing myself in the water, trying to do all the moves to get the scores. And so after that comp, then I was saying to my mum, this is all I want to do. Yeah, no more of the other sports. I'm done with them. This is where I'm going. And probably by 13, so a year of bodyboarding and doing a few more comps, seeing the pros coming to do the comps in Western Australia, that was where I have a specific moment where, because I didn't really talk much within my family around wanting to be a pro, probably around the not wanting to be teased about it or given shit by my brothers, like, oh, what, that's a crazy dream. We live in some remote place. There's no way, there's no chance. But I just had in my head, and then at school we all were going through career books, and I went straight to a section which was around a sports person, being a sports person. And for me, that meant being a professional bodyboarder. And that was at 13. And that was the moment where I planted the seed that was all I wanted to do, was to be a pro bodyboarder. And probably around that stage, because a lot of the magazines and videos were coming out, was also the beginning of an aspiration to be, at that stage, one of the top guys, one of the professionals, a rider like Mike Stewart, who made bodyboarding look amazing, have these sponsors and doing these competitions, just to be one of those guys, one of the stars. Yeah, that was my dream at that point.
In what year are we right now?
92.
92. And around this period, I think a year or two later, Mike Stewart did Jaws, and that was pretty phenomenal. I remember as a young guy, seeing that, him do that on a bodyboard. At the same time, Laird and Derek and Dave Kalama, Derek Donor were doing that. It was like, wow, bodyboarding is legit and for real. And from a East Coast surfer perspective, I started on a bodyboard. I still have my first bodyboard over here. It's a Scott, and that's what I learned on. And let me show you. Check this out.
Yeah, that's definitely. Yeah.
Like, right? Like I started on this, and Ocean City, Maryland. The next step was surfing, and it wasn't like we didn't have the culture you guys have. We don't have the slabs. we have waves that are surfable for the most part, and that's what you did next. Before we continue on, speak a little bit about that, staying with bodyboarding, not going to surfing, which is a completely different sport in the world of wave riding. And it also comes with a completely different cultural set, historical figures. It has its own ethos, just like bodyboarding has its own ethos. Could you please speak to the ethos of bodyboarding and kind of, well, one, why you stuck with it and why you loved it so much, and then two, the culture.
Sure. Well, what's interesting on that point is when I first started, my twin brother at the same time went to surfing. So we were kind of growing up always a little bit individual in our choices of kind of doing different things to each other. So as much of the natural attraction and the pure attraction of me going to the bodyboard, there would definitely have been a little bit of, I'm going to do something different to my twin brother, because we both were doing the surfing on our dad's surfboard, and we were both doing well with it. We're both, getting some good rides and doing well for our age. But when the bodyboards came along, I just went in that direction. And so for me, the attraction and what I enjoyed about that, it's probably cool because that decision was made when I was quite young, before any of the prejudice or why are you bodyboarding or anything like that. Being a kid, it's so pure, the feeling, the desire around choosing something, doing something. And so thinking back to then, I loved the feel of the bodyboarding. I loved the colors. I loved that it had this unique look to it and a unique ride, because it was new at the time too to surfing. And so even just the laying on the board and holding it with my hands, and I think looking back on it, knowing that I'm a very sensitive person, touch sensitive, emotional sensitive, I think that the holding the board in my hands and feeling it under my torso was a good thing, because I just felt it so much, and I felt the wave and the power so much, like I was talking about with that first ride, laying close to the water and getting smashed by the whitewash and thrust forward. There's so much feeling to bodyboarding, and that, especially being a highly sensitive person, is just is such pleasure and excitement in that. And then going on from that, I did trampolining when I was young, so I did a lot of acrobatic stuff like backflips and somersaults, and bodyboarding allowed me to bring that to the water, to the waves, with that high speed, and just all combined to be this really exciting, amping thing to do. And it just seemed to just suit me, and I just loved it. I did love the surfing, but it didn't offer the sort of things that I was most enjoyed and most attracted to. Yeah. Well, I think that's probably the case with a lot of people that do go to bodyboarding, is that stuff, those feelings, the movements, the connection to the wave, that sensitivity and that enjoyment. That's the appeal. But whether it's small or big or however risky, that's the appeal at a simple level. Yeah.
And it makes so much sense the way you explain it, because the bodyboarding culture as a whole, from the outside looking in, you guys, like, you don't care what other people think, and you care about how you feel and what feels best to you, and you're true to your core as a group. And I'm not just saying this from my own observations. I've been some previous interviews. Maria Fernanda is a big wave photographer out of Porto Escondido. We were talking on a previous episode, and she was saying how I said, well, what do you like shooting the most? And she's like, I like shooting surfers, but I like hanging out with bodyboarders. And she feels more of a connection with the bodyboarders, because they are a sensitive group, and they're the egos to the side. And I just thought that was an interesting note of culturally about the bodyboarding as a whole. And would you agree with that comment or statement?
Yeah, 100%. It's very interesting, like that that the feeling that comes with the writing, you know, they have the slightly more sensitivity and the connection to the wave, um, and also the people around you, you know, that sort of comes with being considerate and being empathic, you know, considering other people's feelings. You're feeling the wave so much. There's a lot of feeling in there and a lot of connection. And it is very common, definitely, with bodyboarders on land and in a social circle, that bodyboarders in general, and probably also because of the culture of, um, you know, definitely around the world, country to country, is that bodyboarders are a bit put down, looked on as second nature, um, and you know, getting that sort of prejudice and sort of racist, really. Um, yeah, they're experiencing that part of life. It does make them a bit more empathic and understanding of each other and what they've been through, and um, you know, it does break down that sort of ego barrier and of not wanting to put other people down or appear above other people, because they understand what's that like, and that it's a negative experience, and it doesn't feel good, and you don't want other people to, you know, to feel bad by doing that. So it gives you, and that happens generally early on in life when you are most sensitive, you know, as a child, as a teenager. And so it shapes your life, it shapes your personality, and, you know, the way you perceive the world, and particularly socially. And that's right, it does shape a lot of bodybuilders to have this trait of being humble, of being respectful, of being empathic towards other people, considering how other people feel, the way you communicate with them, and it brings people together because of that, because of the similarities, and that definitely kind of explains what you're talking about there. It takes away this ego or this divide where you might think that you're better than someone else because of something that you do, or something that's a part of your life. So there's a lot more sort of even playing ground and acceptance of people, and that's a really cool thing. I think that as a sort of general characteristic of the bodyboarders in the surf culture.
Well, that was so beautifully said. And as you were speaking, I was thinking first principles of the sport. Your body is more in tune with the water. Your whole body's touching the water as you're moving. And that, I believe, probably has something to do with it also. You are very in tune physically with the water as you move across it. And that's very deep.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to go deeper than that, sort of on a physical level and an energetic level, because I've done a lot of work around energy work with, say, energy, very experienced and high level energy workers and energy healers. You know, you've got your whole chakra system, your whole electrical system of your body is literally, you know, your whole torso's front, which is what a bodyboarder is laying on, you know. So there's no wonder and no doubt that there's so much feeling in that part of your body, you know, so much emotional feeling and physical feeling and senses and receptors, you know, in that part of your body. So when you're laying on that part and you're in the water, on a board, on surface, and there's so much feeling going on. You've got your hands, which is some of again, your most sensitive parts of your body. It's it's sort of definitely a sensory overload, and it all comes into it.
So you're growing up in Western Australia, Margaret River. When did you start surfing the big waves of the slabs you have there? And I told Key and Salmon that I would ask you, what about your first session at the right? And
Sure.
yeah, I would like to know like your introduction to heavy slabs.
1 sec, I'll just go plug in. I'm about to run out of battery. Here we go. So Yeah, well, growing up in Margaret River was definitely an advantage as far as getting early taste of surfing slabs, having the box, having waves like Gas Bay, North Point, and and at an early age they were quite uncrowded. So I had and my older brother was charging at that point when I was like 13. He was 16. Him and his mates were really starting to go pretty hard on the ledges around where I lived, and they were always, particularly my older brother, was always pushing me to go harder, to go bigger, and so I definitely like developed that love at quite an early age for the rush of surfing reef breaks and the rush of the intensity of thick barrels and just just going to this other world of surfing a remote reef break out off the headland with your mates, and it was so exciting and it's the sickest time. And I think from an early age, I had just aspirations to basically kind of go big and set goals uh, of charging heavy waves. And I remember as an 8-year-old when I saw we first got our bodyboards, our Max 7s, going to the car park at Surfers Point where you see the box across the bay, across the channel. And this was at a point where it was very rarely surfed. There was the occasional pro surfer that would surf there during the Margaret River Pro. So the bodyboarders weren't quite surfing it yet. And yeah, just as this bold 8-year-old in my little dreaming mind, I was saying to myself, one day I want to conquer that wave as an 8-year-old. Yeah, it still kind of shocks me to this day, but I guess it just was a little goal of mine. It was an indication of my spirit, my nature of just wanting to take things on, for the rush, for perhaps for a bit of the prestige of just, this grand dream of just taking on something that seems impossible, something that seems, but it was just so attractive to me, these massive barrels, these huge spits, just feeling so drawn to it, just to conquer, just to take this thing on. And that part of me and that desire and that dream is definitely, the nature of me, my spirit, which led me to get to the right and paddle out and having that goal. And probably another big part of it was it came after I had the mental health challenge and spent a year out of the water, and I watched the imagery and the videos of the guys that first surfed it. I went through quite a long low period after that first hospitalization where I was through the period that I was feeling really low. I lost a lot of confidence, and I remember rocking up to Shark Island to surf the contest, and I was looking at the reef and the rocks and having bad anxiety and thinking it was too heavy. I couldn't charge. I couldn't do it. I pulled out of the contest, and so I really lost a lot of confidence through that stage. And I remember watching the right footage and the photos and just thinking, how are you guys doing that? That's so massive. And that, so somehow that my spirit had just been broken, and that confidence and the desire, it just was wavering, didn't seem there anymore. But then as I slowly came back to the ocean and my health got better and I started to understand what I'd been through, I was starting to surf bigger waves. I went back to Hawaii again in January, surfed some bigger waves over there, and just started to come back to me. And then I was looking at the imagery of the bright and feeling, oh, wait a minute, no, I want this. I look at that wave. That's like what I saw was the box that double the size and on steroids, and that's my dream wave. A heavy right-hander that I've grown up surfing. And then I knew, because when I was watching all this and I was in this low period, I was on the Gold Coast in Australia, living there with my wife. And after Hawaii in 2008, we moved back to Western Australia. And it was not till a couple of years later that I got to have that opportunity to surf the right, to paddle out there. So I had a couple of years to really get back into surfing WA, surfing the slabs, and finding my feet again and getting my confidence back. And that dream had been planted since I saw the guys surfing and started feeling better and more confident. Yeah.
And how was that first session?
Yeah, that was just still to this day one of my most incredible sessions. Definitely, I drove down at 2 o'clock in the morning from Margaret River. I left by myself, knowing the forecast looked pretty big, with a possibility the winds might not be good. But so I had friends from Perth that were going to be driving down in the middle of the night if the winds looked good on the observations. But I just was committed. I just knew the swell was going to be big enough. I knew I wanted to paddle out there, and I was just going. It wasn't a concern whether they were going to go out or not. I just knew. I was just wanted to see it. I just wanted to get out there and catch some waves and see it from my own eyes. So I got down there just at dawn at first light and went to the checkpoint, and I saw there was no wind, which was a big win. That's what you want down there, is no wind. And the waves out on this kind of bunch of outer reefs that surround the right, it was just like whitewash everywhere. So I knew, oh, it's big. And the sound was just roaring, and I knew it was going to be on. So there was no one around. It's just this roaring ocean on top of these cliffs, and the bush all around. And I was just sort of, the adrenaline started to kick in, so I was moving fast, heart was beating. Got my wet in, got my equipment, ran down the beach. At this point, because there was whitewash everywhere and I'd never been there before, I didn't know, I couldn't see where the right was, and I hadn't been there, so I didn't know actually how to get out there. It was only looking at Google Maps, knowing that it was next to a rock that's out in the water, and I could just see the rock in amongst all the whitewash and the sea mist. I could see the rock there, so I knew where to aim for, and that if I aim for that, I'm going to see the right. So I ran to a corner of the beach where I could see that the shore break, the beach break, was that there was a rip going out in the corner. The beach break was massive, like 10 to 12 foot, because the swell was so big outside. And so I just had to rush through the beach break, getting pounded a few times, but getting out there. And so still at this stage, there was no one around. There was this big cliffs and a massive bay. And so it's kind of like a dream, really, just being in this huge expanse of nature and a roaring ocean. It's just me there, just having my experience. So it was pretty wild. And then I paddled the half hour from the shore out to the breaks. It's quite far off the shore. So it's 30 minutes of paddling through this dark, choppy water. And then as I got closer to the rock, I came over a lump and just saw this giant slow motion right hand barrel. And it looked like, first thing I thought when I saw it was, whoa, that's just like the box, but like I was imagining, twice as big, twice as thick, and just so gnarly looking, but so perfect looking at the same time. So I was like, all right, here we go. That's it. That's the right. And then so I paddled up to it and just watched it for about 15 minutes, just trying to get my scope on the reef, looking at where I could take off, loving just watching these monster barrels unloading in front of me, kind of tripping out at the whole scene of where it was and how remote it was. And then then I paddled into a couple, just going on the shoulder to start with, which has always been my approach, going into heavy waves, not going in and just rushing a bomb, free falling and getting smashed and hitting the reef, but just slowly getting my confidence, working out that I can make it from a certain point and how hard I had to paddle into it. And then by the time I was ready for getting a set, I could see a jet ski coming over, which was my mates that had driven down from Perth, that they'd come through the night because they saw the wind observations were good. It was offshore. And I got my first big one, like about a 10-footer, just really vertical drop, big barrel right in front of them just as they rocked up. So, and then we, had a really good session together. The boys towing into a few, and I was paddling into a bunch for a few hours, and yeah, it's just a full-time session. Really fond memories.
Beautiful, beautiful description. You brought me right there. And what's the sound like in that barrel? What's the feeling?
Oh yeah, that's the good question. That's one of the most awesome parts, and the experience of being out there by myself is just incredible. Because once you get so far out to sea, everything's so quiet, especially in a lull. So in a lull, it's just dead silence because you can't hear the land, you can't hear the birds, can't hear the wind in the trees. You're out there, so there's no, because it's quite far out with no other reefs around. There's literally no noise, no whitewash. It's a calm day, no wind. So it's a dead silence. And then you'll see that day was 10 to 15 foot. So you might see to it. So when I was looking from the channel at the start, I was looking at some 10, 12 footers, and just be this silence, like watching a slow motion movie, is this lip, this big fat white swell coming in quite fast, and then as it hits the reef, just jacking up, watching this thing in slow motion, the massive thick lip just throwing so far out into the flats, and then this ton of water just boom, just imploding, and just such a like thunder like clap when it detonates into the flats. Just incredible, and that just
Gorgeous.
echoes. Yeah,
So
amazing.
sick. So, you speak of building your confidence slowly. You end the
Mm.
session, you totally kill it. The confidence that you've balled up and you've now taken with you off of the session, we can call it stoke, we can call it confidence. Speak generally to confidence that's built from the ocean and what that does to a person when they have to operate in the world.
Sure, yeah, it's been massive for me around that, especially as I've gotten older, as far as um, being able to apply like discipline and little sort of personal mantras to face hard tasks or certain emotions, particularly negative emotions, when you're on land. So, for example, um, when I'm facing maybe going to work or facing a social situation which I might be a little bit anxious about. Yeah, going to run stretch class and might be a little bit anxious, just wanting to things to be perfect. And something that I learned from surfing, particularly when I was younger, starting to ride big waves, is I learned that it was always better once, as far as, okay, so when I'm watching these big heavy reefs from the land as a kid, as a teenager, as early 20s, it was that being on land watching it was where I felt the most fear, the most nervous, and questioning myself. Oh, can I get out there? Can I do it? I don't know about this. Really being a bit on edge, a bit scared, and then like not knowing if I was physically capable. Then I'd paddle out in the water, and as soon as I get in the water, start paddling, go towards the break, I was calm, and that confidence kicked in of knowing, yeah, I want this, I can do this, my ability's there. And from those experiences over the years, I just learned to say to myself, no matter how big or gnarly it looked, my personal mantra was just paddle out. 3 words, just paddle out. And that always got me out there. And I was always rose to the occasion every time. Maybe I wiped out, maybe hit the reef sometimes, but just always was able to get out there, feel good, and pull it off and have a good time. And so bring that mantra to land whenever I face things that I'm anxious about, or things that are feeling like, oh, this is going to be hard. I don't know if I can do this. It'll always be in my mind, just paddle out, or just walk in. That's probably one of my biggest things that I've brought from the ocean, from wave riding, is that sort of mental push through factor of being able to face things that that seem hard, that seem like I've got doubt or I've got anxiety. Yeah, that was it. One of my biggest lessons of transferring ocean life to the land. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. And you've had so many what I would perceive from the outside looking in, anxiety filled moments, particularly in your competition life, when you go up against your heroes. Um, and there's one story that I heard you tell on a podcast that I think aired about 3 years ago, where you beat I think it was in Tahiti. You beat Michael Stewart. You did a 360 in the barrel, and that story was amazing to me. And I was wondering if you could share that with us from this new perspective you have, and like particularly what was so interesting was the 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 you didn't go into that wave thinking you were going to do something, but you did something amazing, and you came out of it, and you won the whole thing because of it, and you were just like in the most pure flow state there is. And that is such a I think in the interview you described it as a manic state, but totally natural and totally between your own spirit and the ocean and the moment. I mean, you could have easily caught an edge and just eaten it, and that would have been okay. But you did an incredible thing. So maybe briefly, or however long you take it forever describing this because it's so beautiful. But to bring us there, and then bring us to the lesson.
Sure, definitely. Yeah. So that's, yeah, definitely brings to mind another sort of perfect lesson as far as something from that experience, and being able to apply that to, so if I could say that experience and that ride was mastery, then being able to bring that mastery to what I've experienced with mental health and with my mind. So taking it back to Tahiti, it still it still blows me away to this day that I was able to pull that off. That it's just amazing. I mean, I had a lot of preparation leading up to that contest, and as far as I'd done years of world competing and had huge aspirations, and went to the Tahiti with the goal that was written on a sheet that I'd read every night of getting first in the Tahiti skins. So it's sort of that spirit I talked about earlier of just having these bold dreams, which are nearly impossible. Going as a 20-year-old, going up against the world's best that I'd idolized and was so inspired by, and just thought they were gods, and just had this unworldly ability. Guys like Mike Stewart and Gloomy Tamaga, who are twice my age, but something inside of me, just a part of me, like I say, my spirit, my true nature. I'm just so driven to go for these impossible goals and these impossible feats. And so I went there, had this goal sheet, first in Tahiti skins, reading it every night, because I'd see these guys from day to day, and it'd bring me back to this kind of child or teenager feeling of looking at these guys going, oh, these guys are just my heroes. These are the best guys in the world, and sort of losing my own self and losing my confidence because I've idolized these guys so much. Just not being able to, just losing that ability to believe that I could beat them in a competition. It was a big fight in my mind to believe that I could do it. And so when competition day came, it was quite near the end of the period. So it was, kind of 2 weeks of reading the sheet at night, drilling it into my mind that, no, it's possible. I can do this. I want this. I felt my form was really good, and the waves were pumping, like 8 to 10, 12-foot chopes. I'd had good waves through each heat. I'd actually beaten Mike in one of my earlier heats, so that kind of had broken a big, which I'd never competed against Mike. I'd never even thought I could possibly beat him through my whole competitive years as a youngster. And so that was a bit of a turning point, and realizing, whoa, well, that it is possible. I've just beaten him in a heat. And so I had,
yeah, good consistent waves and good scores and good momentum through to the final. And then I remember there was a really distinct moment in the final where I had Stuart and Tamaga and Alistair Taylor, another older hero of mine, Charger from South Africa, were all ahead of me paddling out to the peak at the very start of the heat. And they all looked so gnarly and competitive, and I could just see they were so driven to win. And you know, not looking at each other, paddling firm and tense. These 40-year-old men, you know, late 30s, so much experience, so strong in this first time ever comp at Chopes. And I just remember thinking, oh, I just feel like a kid here. I'm so far out of my league. But this is amazing. I was just so stoked to be in that moment. Just thinking, oh, of course I'm going to let these guys paddle ahead of me to the peak. These guys are my heroes. These guys are the best guys in the sport. I can't wait to watch them in this comp. But then I had my Aussie mates on the boats in the channel yelling, "Go Hardballs, go, go!" I was, you know, chanting my name, and that sort of, you know, hit my heart and hit me in a place of like, okay, let's go. It's on now. So I took last place in priority, got a bit of a warm-up wave, bit of a shoulder. It was a no score. The boys are still chanting and getting me to keep going. And then so my first wave that I actually got wide of the peak, so the other guys had pushed each other too deep, that I was sitting wide, and I got the best score of the heat so far. So I got like just a good, thick, wide west barrel. And that really got me pumped and thought, whoa, big score. This put me in a chance. And the Aussie boys were yelling at me again, "Go, Hardballs, get out there, go, go, go." And so after that first wave, some more waves came in. And so the guys, Stuart, Tammy, Alistair, all got a wave. And that left me deepest on the reef. And so at that point, I had to tell myself, all right, hold my position. Don't get snagged here. Don't get pushed too deep. Hold the position. Have the goal in my mind. All right, keep going, stay focused. You know, don't lose myself in looking at the guys and losing that belief in myself. And then this, bomb set came, probably an 8-foot set. Wasn't really big one. It was, a good size. Like if you're on the edge of the reef at Chopes and you're seeing a set coming, it's a real moment of shading off any doubt. You got to be totally committed. Like, all right, positioning, paddle hard. There's no doubt. There's no hesitation, or it's just not on. So it's a real switch on focus, turn around, paddle hard into the drop, not thinking anything about what I'm going to do in the ride here, just knowing I've got to position myself well, and I just got to go hard. Probably knowing a little bit in my head that just going for another score, getting my top 2 total. That's what the total score was going to be out of. Drop, quite a vert drop, so just trying to get down it, paddling really hard so I could beat the suck and get down it quick. And then went into the bottom turn. And on footage, you see that it spits for quite a while, pretty strong spit that almost looks like it would have blinded me. But the interesting thing is, in my memory, I don't remember even seeing a spit, because I think I was so focused on, first of all, taking drop and then looking down the line of the wall that it probably did maybe blind me for a sec, but I had such a focused image on the angle of the wall and the pace at which the wave was going to take from that bottom turn moment. I was already seeing what the wave was going to be doing. So even if I was blinded for 2 seconds, I had a vision and a prediction of where the wave was going to break, how it was going to break. And it was in that moment of seeing the wave's lip line and the wrap and the size that I decided, okay, I'm going to do a spin. It's ridiculous how quick that decision making was in that moment, because, well, A, you don't really go out Chope singing, "Oh, I'm going to do a spin in the barrel," and B, I've never seen a wave that big or that sort of heavy looking spin in the barrel here. So it just all came from that inner nature of at that moment of doing the impossible, basically. You know, having that goal there, being under all this pressure, but all this amp, and it just sending my emotions and my mental and physical capabilities just to its maximum. And in that split second, seeing that lip line and that wrapping barrel and that big throwing wave, it was in that second of like, okay, this is where I'm going to spin. I'm going to do a spin in the barrel, because I can see if I spin at the right moment with the right amount of push into the rail and keep myself going across while I'm going through that heavy barrel section that's wrapping, that I'm going to have a chance of making it. So yeah, that kind of all happened in a flash of making the decision. And then the awesome thing is, when I turned into the spin that much, but I remember being backwards facing the barrel, and it just suddenly, my memory is just of a 1,000 frames a second of just seeing this massive barrel throwing and just being a complete barrel with the mountains as I'm coming around the spin, mountains and the lip line and the flats just all in slow motion. And it's just the most incredible vision and that memory. And then so I've come around, memory is coming around, seeing the mountains, but then being focused on seeing the hole out through to the channel, and then just holding on as tight as I've ever held to come through that barrel section, or at least like putting my shoulders and head forward to be keeping my momentum going forward and keeping that speed high enough and up enough to be able to come through the barrel to make it. And there was a bit of chandelier as well. If you can see on the video, there's a bit of whitewash comes down, so that tenseness held me to come through that last section. And then I popped out and was racing towards the channel, knowing, oh my God, I've made it. And as I was holding on to the chandelier, I think I could just see the boats in the channel. But as I came out, I was way down the reef and I couldn't see anyone. And I could just see the mountains. And I was just in this moment of, holy shit, just like, what have I just done? And kind of was a bit blown away, of almost like speechless, thoughtless. I couldn't even think, oh my God, I've just got my second high scoring ride I could possibly win. I was just like, wow, what just happened? And then I pulled off the back, and it was a skins format, so I had to throw my arm up in the air. And I remember throwing my arm up, and that was where the stoke hit me. And I was just so amped and so stoked. And then I could hear the whole boat channel was just erupting. Yeah, it's a bit emotional. It was such a powerful moment. And after that, I had to go and sit off to the side after you claimed to go sit off the side, and I had to watch the content, the rest of the comp. But somehow I felt that I'd already won. I just kind of felt it. I just sort of, all right, I feel like I've done enough. I did 8-5 and a 10. Not that I knew. They weren't calling the scores out. But yeah, it just felt like a total confidence that no matter what the guys tried or did, that I'd won it. And I sort of went into this calm state over in the channel, just sort of blown away by what I'd done. And then it got towards the end. The guys got a couple of waves, but nothing too special. They had hassled each other out a bit too much because of the pressure to keep up to get to because they would have heard the whole channel and the boats erupting when I'd had my spin in the barrel wave, and knew that they had to get a really high score. And then there was a countdown, the last 10 seconds, and then I paddled over to the Aussie boys, and they all made a circle and were chanting and like pushing me up in the air. And I remember like everyone was sort of celebrating and congratulating me, and then I came back to the boat harbour near the shore just after the final had been surfed, and I hadn't seen Stuart yet. I hadn't seen I think maybe Tamaga congratulated me in the channel, but when I got back to shore on this little boat harbour where the boats came in, Stuart came up really warmly and gave me, and I just remember being a bawling mess because I just couldn't believe what had happened, and it was just such a high moment. I was just buzzing for the rest of the day, probably for the next week, as you know, just couldn't believe as a 20-year-old, you know, having that dream and surfing this amazing comp with all the best guys, and you know, pulling off that wave. It was just like full childhood dream come true. You know, it was just such a big moment.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I feel like I was there with you, and you know, it's now 20 years later. You're still emotional thinking back to it and recounting the story. Looking back on that moment and in that time, and reflecting on all that's happened since. Where does that put you? Does that make you and yourself like scream for another victory, or as a champion, how does that fall into the schematics of life, especially where you are now?
Yeah, sure. As far as say competitions goes and aspirations like that I had at that age, yeah, I definitely don't have those aspirations now. I feel like fulfilled at that stage of my life, and how hard I went, and the goals and the dreams I had. You know, so I feel quite satisfied to have gone through that part of life and given it everything I had, you know, and achieved some pretty big goals and amazing things that I'm really satisfied with and fulfilled with as a person. And then something that I've drawn from that, particularly with facing like mental and emotional challenges, is being able to sort of simplify that mastery under extreme conditions. You know, whether it's just a single ride or a competition, or riding and finding flow in general to a sort of mastery level. You know, I've found a similar sort of cross-reference technique and around the mind, as far as your thoughts and emotions, and being able to manage that, to find calm in the middle of it, because the mind, obviously, as everyone knows, the thoughts and the emotions can be a pretty chaotic place, and can be really racy, and can really throw you off center. You know, can really throw you off calm, and become pretty panicked, pretty anxious, it can really throw us into a negative place. And obviously, riding a wave, for example, like chopes, or trying a maneuver like the spin in the barrel, or you know, even just taking off on a set, is exactly the same. You know, facing thoughts and emotions which are pretty extreme, and that's only really possible to manage that and pull it off. You know, find a flow state through experience and through mastery. And so, having lived through a mental health experience, which is pretty gnarly, as far as the thoughts you have and the emotions around that, and trying to find calm in the middle of it, and awareness of what's happening, yeah, I think is very similar. So, for example, when let's say, for example, the wave I rode at Chopes, you've got the wave to start with. So there's the power and the speed of that wave, which could equal to a thought that you have in the mind. So this is sort of a reading of either something that's happening in your mind, or something that's happening in the physical environment around you. So it's the description or the analogy of what's happening before emotion. So that's the wave itself. So before you're riding it on your board, before you're executing something with flow, there's the wave, there's a thought to start with, and then once you're on your board on the wave, then you come into the feeling, and that's, you know, it could be the feeling of speed, could be the feeling of, you know, wobble, trying to control it. You know, it's emotion starting to rise once you're on the board and you're feeling things, and there's a need to have awareness around that to be able to then direct it and control it and master it. So once you've gone through the thought, then in perceiving that thought, in reflecting on that thought, there's going to be emotion, you know. So when you're on the wave, there's the emotion at a probably more beginner level is, oh shit, or oh my god, this is intense, this oh my god, am I going to nosedive, am I going to slide out, you know. There's, so until there's mastery and experience coming to it, then that feeling becomes more automatic, because you learn to control it, and you learn to know how to direct that feeling, how to turn it into control. You know, in a bodyboard, you might move further back, and you might be able to harness that speed more and direct it. So in experience with the mind, so you've had this thought, it might be a bit of a crazy thought, it might be a pretty extreme thought, and from that you get this emotion, which is, it might be a strong sadness, it might be a strong worry, something like that, you know, something really negative. And that within the experience, say perhaps when a person with mental health is first experiencing this really strong emotion, that can really knock you over, you know. That can really, you can really struggle with managing that and finding calm in that. So then in the third step, which becomes where you become flow or the mastery from experience. So, you know, so you felt the wave's power, and you're okay with that. You're working with that through experience. You're with mastery and with experience. You know this feeling on the board. You can harness the speed. You can direct it. You're in control. You know it. You know, and that's the emotion. You know the feeling on your board. You're able to harness it. If you can manage that feeling, you're not scared anymore. You're not, oh my god, what's this? You know what to do with that. You know what to do with that feeling. So then, so the wave and your mastery of the board, then there becomes a synergy from that, and you're able to flow. So both the wave's power and the mastery of the board is where, you know, your nature, your true nature, your spirit behind that allows you to flow with both of those things working in synergy and not being thrown off by that. So in the mind realm, you're having the thought and you're observing the emotion. So you're not so much getting caught up in this whirlwind of the emotion and getting, you know, like you might see in a child becoming really upset or really angry or really worried. You know, so it's more of a through mastery and experience, it's more of an observation of the emotion that's happening. So sure, you might be feeling, there might be a slight observation of feeling angry or feeling worried or feeling nervous or angry, but through mastery and emotion of just being able to see from further distance, from further perspective, deeper perspective, more slowed down, through being more calm, then that feeling can pass away and not interrupt with where you really want to go forward from your best decision, from your truest self. So that allows you to, you know, ride the wave in the way that you really want to, you really want to ride it from, you know, your mastery, from your experience, and without being thrown off by the worry, the hesitation, and the inexperience. And so in, you know, riding your mental health through your thoughts and your emotion that might throw you off from who you really are or what your true nature is, and through experience and you know, mentoring and getting to know yourself, you can be calmer,
and you can see things from more of a distance and more slowed down, and navigate life with, through the awareness and through the experience of your own true person. Not being too rattled by emotion or by thoughts of what other people think of you, or how the pressure of how people think you should be, but just more acting and going through life the way you want to. Your truest version of yourself, your truest spirit. And that's probably in more recent times the experience that I've gained, bringing it from the ocean and crossing it and synergizing it with my experience with mental health.
So deep, and brilliantly said. Thank you so much for delivering that to us here. Now, what really struck me is your sensitivity to the physical nature of water, and the aesthetic of that is what you're a genius of. I want to know how much does the visual aesthetic play into your way of being in both of those realms? And then when you're not in the water, how much does looking at pictures of the ocean transport, or does it at all? And I would like to know, like, is the visual aesthetic of the water when you're in it, does that play a big role in the stoke factor that you receive, in addition to the movement and the feeling tactily?
Sure. So you mean the visual as far as, what I'm seeing when I'm in the water, in the ocean?
Yeah, like
colors.
or even just waiting for your set and just seeing the soft fascination of the water around you and the fluidity of it, visually speaking. I mean, we can feel it, but seeing it as the light changes, whether it be morning, middle of the day, evening, all these different periods have different feelings and emotions to them. And I would like a word from you on that, because in my realm professionally, it's photos. That's the realm I'm in, is looking. And I physically operate also in the water, not to the level of you, obviously, but the looking of it, I'm very interested in, as far as like how that affects us, and then how that affects us when we're not in the water, looking at water in our homes, or in a mental state that is not positive, and how maybe looking at a picture of an ocean in that state can bring you to a higher level by just doing so.
Yeah, I love that. I love this. What comes to mind straight away is, when you're talking about that, is I have this image of looking at a swell, a wave from the back, when I was at an outer reef in Bali, just surfing by myself, because it seems like, especially when you're surfing by yourself, you really connect with the sensory experience of what you see, what you feel, what you hear, and the touch. Like, it's really sensory, and there's a really strong direct connection. And so I have this image of just sitting at the back on the reef, beautiful day, like really glassy blue, and watching a swell from behind just slowly move through unbroken water. So moving through blue water, it's not quite breaking, but it's standing tall, and the sparkles, and so the sparkles on the back of that swell, and just this, watching the swell so gracefully move through the water, and just being fascinated with that, and feeling synergized with that. That's I guess what that mantra was about at the start, is that because it comes, it's said it comes at a pace which is in sync with the universal flow, and that includes the ocean. It includes the sound of the waves, the movement of water. And so when I think of seeing that water moving, and the feeling of seeing that mantra, is there's a very, very much a synergy in the pace of what I'm seeing and feeling. So there's a synergy in the movement of that swirl, the sparkles of sun on the water, the movement of the palm trees on the shores behind, and that's just so calming, and there's such a connection there. So beautiful to be in that moment. Yeah, so that's, I guess, touching on what you're saying as far as the visual and being able to connect to that and enjoy that. Yeah, was there something else in there that you were asking in
Well,
relation to that?
and then my follow-up to that was, let's go back to Tahiti. Is Tahiti one of the best places to see just the purest water? And if not, where is?
Oh, it's definitely up there. Definitely up there. Having, I'm just thinking of, particularly at sunset time, you got these really orange brilliant colors. So it's glassing off from the day, and you got the green. The sun's lighting up the green mountains in the backdrop. I feel like quite often the whole picture for me, makes it, as far as the feeling of the place. Just so the ocean is just dead glass. There's those slow swells moving through the ocean, and then there's the reflections of the green mountains, and there's the hints of soft orange running across the water, and it just makes for this scene of just incredible beauty. Palm trees lined up along the shore, and that goes through amazing ranges of colors throughout the day. More of a aqua blue through the morning, in that more morning light, and then the mountains are a bit darker, but the greens are really bright still on the shore, and the whites are really bright in the surf, and it just goes through the different shades throughout the day until that late afternoon time, which is just magic. But for sure, that'd have to be one of the more scenic and more like strong, I think, more just a really impacting image, because there's so much going on which all comes together. Yeah, I find Byron Bay to me really has a strong feel, as far as it has the bay itself. The way it's situated is the sun rises perfectly in the east at the right hand point of the bay there, and then it moves around the entire bay, which there's mountains in the background to the north, and a beautiful big bay, blue water island off the coast. So the sun rises in the east over the most eastern point, which is the most eastern point of Australia, and then it moves around to the north, all the way around to the west, which then sets over the mountain, and the bay receives the sun, and this beautiful white sand beach. It's under the sunlight for the whole day, and it's these like really cool volcanic rocks on the beach and along the points that receive the light, and so it just gives the place a really strong buzz, because it's so well aligned with the sun and with those strong, really kind of raw, big nature features all around it in every direction of the compass. And that to me stands out as one of the more like impacting natural scenery places that I've been. Also Hawaii is incredible too. Mountains, big swells, white sand beaches. Yeah.
What's your favorite spot in Hawaii?
Let's see. I think I find the North Shore pretty hard to beat. I mean, especially if you take away the human element, of just the nature of the place, how the waves, the big heavy waves, break close to the shore. It's quite a bit of a juxtaposition, I suppose, of a contrast of these incredibly big, dangerous waves coming so close to the shore and smashing into the lava reefs below. When you're watching that, just looking out the ocean, it's just such an incredible thing to see. These big, scary lines smashing, making these loud noises. And then if you were to turn around from that, you just see these beautiful palm trees, really lush green valleys, and then rising up to really scenic, beautiful mountaintops. And there's rivers there, the Waimea River is just incredible, that valley. And yeah, it just makes this mix of this contrast of such a beautiful, peaceful, and really like a part of nature that just really gives you a feeling of love. And then you look around just to the ocean, which just is incredibly powerful, dangerous, intimidating, hair raising. It's not, you know, it'd have to be up there with the most powerful, gnarly waves of the world. And so that in itself just makes this incredible experience. Yeah. And I find the experience sitting on the beach, particularly at Pipe, is especially well, for me, my experience is being highly sensitive. I feel vibrations of things really strong. So for me to sit on the beach at Big Pipe, where you know the waves slam into the reef, and I'm feeling in my body, not just in the noise of the, but in my body, I'm feeling like a mini earthquake in the sand, and that gets the adrenaline going, just feeling it. So for me, sitting at Pipe, I can't really sit on the beach all morning or all day because I'm getting too amped up. There's too much adrenaline going. So it's like if I'm there, I've got to be getting in the water, or I've got to be getting out of there to find some peace because it's too draining on my energy, because it's just incredibly powerful. Yeah, and there's so much energy, not just in the ocean, but transforming and transferring into the land, into the shoreline.
And the scene at Pipe is so heavy amongst all peoples. Everyone is out there to just prove something to themselves or to someone else, between the photographers, the surfers, and the bodyboarders. How was that for you as a sensitive person and a competitive person, putting yourself in that mix? You know, you're there for the pipe itself, but there's all this other stuff happening around. What was that like for you?
Yeah, very, very true. The interesting thing there is that I was trying to sort of remove the human element and just focus on what you see in the ocean, what you see on land, and then yeah, just like you're saying, that the human element is just as sort of fascinating, interesting, gnarly, intimidating. Yeah, so for me, yeah, like you mentioned, as a sensitive person, and just feeling so much, not just in nature, but also in the human realm. Going out into the crowded lineups like a Pipe, where it's people are just, you know, shoulder to shoulder, 100 people out. You know, very strong, I guess you'd say, sort of macho element out there, as far as pecking order, as far as having to call hard to catch a wave, having to sort of jostle and hassle a bit to get to the inside position. Yeah, that was really intense for me, and I really didn't really like it. Particularly when the wave is so heavy and hard to position and hard to make without even considering other people. It's the sort of, I think it's a wave for me that is hardest to position and take off on, because it's moving so fast and jacking so fast that if you turn your back on it and paddle just for a couple of seconds, that's going to be the difference of the wave picking up and just throwing you into a free fall or throwing you in a lip. So your accuracy and vigilance of watching the wave and moving left or right or outside or inside as the wave's approaching you, even within a few meters, is so critical. And then if you've got to take your eyes off the wave and be looking at other people on the inside, on the outside, and you're turning your senses away from the wave, so you've got to be listening, looking, even perhaps feeling if there's someone behind you. Like it's so gnarly and intense that it's no wonder that people take off in the wrong position out there, get injured, that drop-ins happen, because you've got to be so focused in the takeoff to start with that you know, all this crazy stuff happens. So yeah, for me it was always just a nervy experience. It wasn't that enjoyable. I loved surfing the wave. I loved it most when it was kind of big and a bit messy and there was space in the lineup. yeah, that was when I really felt I thrived out there, and got my best waves and had the best time. I remember a funny thing I had with my other Aussie mate Ben Player, where he'd started noticing that on especially on the smaller days when it was really thick, close crowd, he'd notice that after a wave, I'd go and like spend quite a bit of time in the channel before I'd paddle out. And you go, oh, Balls, what are you doing? Why are you always hanging out there down in the channel, spending so much time down there? And I had to admit to him, well, I can't pee in the lineup, man. There's too much, too much stage fright. There's too much pressure out here. I can't. It doesn't work for me. So I have to go get down to the channel, get my space, and get some peace, and then do my pee down there. So that's a bit of a sum up of my Hawaiian experience. Yeah.
That's so good, but you still rank it as one of your favorite spots and the place that you'd even go back to. If we could get you a little machine to take you anywhere in the world right now, would you go to a place that you've been before, or do you have a destination that's on your list of dreams that you would like to visit?
Island. That's a place that I've never gotten to, and just the place really appeals to me, and the reefs look sick, and I hear it's a good vibe surfing there. Yeah, that definitely comes straight to mind.
So did you see that recent swell from a couple of weeks ago that they got?
No, I haven't. Just more bombs, is it?
Yeah, well, again, the guys who introduced me to you, the Salmon brothers, Keane was over there, and I found out about him because he shot a photo of one of our local heroes here, Mason Barnes, in the most gnarly wave I've ever seen in Ireland, and it was just incredible. So that I'll send it to you after this podcast. You can check it out and put it on your vision board. But just a few more questions here. You're a coach now. What are the first principles you deliver to your students regarding just being in the ocean and having a good time? What's the key point?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the main coaching I do these days is a week-long camp in Bali at the business we have there, Bali Bodyboarding. So it's really cool having a week because it's an experience where you can kind of sort of like really find having a good time, having a lot of fun, because it's not just one session where you're trying to pump out all this coaching and this specific like technique and really trying to hit goals. It's more, so if you can span that over a week, then there's not so much the pressure or the the intensity of trying to. It almost becomes stressful, I feel, if it's a short, like 2-hour session where the person doing the coaching might have so many goals and aspirations, but you can only hit so much. So it's almost like a pressure or stress thing. But when you've got a whole week of surfing, then that side of it, as far as the performance, the aspirations, the technique, things like that, it only becomes a small part of these 7 days of surfing for hours, and then it becomes this deeper experience of how much of a good time can we have. Check out this scenery of where we are. You get to slow things down. You come out of the sort of first day rush of, oh yeah, we're surfing, we're doing the hardy camp in Bali. We're going to be videoing, we're going to be trying all these moves and living this dream of becoming finding our best ability to, wow, how good's this sport, this activity we're doing in life, which makes us feel so good. We're so like grateful to have this experience and be experiencing this culture in Bali because it's a beautiful place, and just bringing the positiveness and the happiness out of the experience more than that sort of, it can almost be a bit egotistical, or it can be a bit too much influence from outside as to why you're doing it, as opposed to what I touched on earlier is, your true nature and your spirit, and what really is the reason behind why you're finding happiness doing it. So it's not so much because you can get a wave on Instagram and show people how much you're ripping, or to show yourself how good you are by improving or progressing. It's getting beneath those layers to the more simple layer of, well, how good does it feel getting into the water each day at sunrise, and the feeling of jumping on the board and paddling out with your mates, and the feeling of just actually riding the wave at these fun breaks, and getting the speed up and getting a barrel, and just taking it below, well, how good's my style in the barrel, how clean was that maneuver. It's that's I guess the aim of where I like to take people on their week's experience is, going through all the stuff, like the technical stuff and the high performance, and realizing that high performance is an actual high feeling, because it feels good to surf good. So it feels good to surf a wave really well. But when you dig deeper and expand it over a week, then you learn to enjoy the wipeouts more, and then the negative, the negatives don't seem so negative, and you can find more simple positives. And it's a good metaphor around life. I find, like, again, that transferring the experience in the ocean to land, where once you slow things down a little and become quite easily pleased by things, then you can find more enjoyment in life, and have a more positive experience, sort of on a simple level from day to day, and go from there. Yeah.
So deep. A couple of years ago, I gave up surfing for a year, and I just surfed the foam top. And I did this to, my knee started, I got a knee injury, but then I healed, but I just stuck with the foam top because I was having more fun. And I began to realize that, like, the surfing I was doing on my shortboards was very egotistical, and I was wrapped up in an ego. And when I was on the foam top, I didn't care, and I was having more fun because of that. And like, I got to thinking, and I was like, if the sun is the ego and the moon is the embodiment of all, it sounds like that's what you're delivering at your camp. It's like a shattering of the self and what the self's trying to do for whatever external reason, and you're coming to the moment, and you're coming to the moment for the joy of the moment. And what you just described was brilliant. Where can people? Do you still have openings at your camp? If anyone's listening, can they join up? What's the protocol?
Sure, yeah, it's on Instagram and a website, bodyboarding.com. And I just run camps there from April to November, basically every 4 weeks. I do 2 weeks, 2 1-week camps up there. Yeah, but it's just so great. I just love it as that thing to look forward to every month, because it's such a beautiful place and the waves are so consistent. And we just have small groups, and we're able to travel around the island. For me, probably the best thing about it is going to bed each day knowing I'm going to wake up and, like, go on an adventure, and it's going to be glassy. I'm going to go to these, like, beautiful places on the island and get in the ocean. It's just such a good routine, and so you get in this really nice rhythm, and it's a it's really positive part of life for me. It's really I just really love it. It makes me love Bali and love going there.
Beautiful. Do you you have a family, you have children. How do you operate with them, as far as, like, getting them into the ocean, pushing them but not pushing them too much? What is your philosophy around children and exposure to your passions, and what you think is the right path? And what advice do you have for parents out there?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one, because you see, as far as how much the parents push the kids or let them have their way, and it just has such a different impact or outcome. You know, like you see some kids that are pushed will say compete early and actually go on to have a career. Some kids that are pushed will just completely not like it and hate their parents for it. Some parents will completely let the kids do what they want to do, so they're just on devices and screens all day. But it's really, you just don't know how it's going to come out. But so for me, my approach has been, my wife and I have loved just taking the kids to the beach a lot, both because we've spent a lot of our kids' lives in Bali. We'd spend 6 months in Bali and 6 months in Margaret River. And so we were around the beach and living through the summer a lot through the last sort of 10 years. And so our approach would be, we'd be a little bit pushy as far as getting the kids to the beach. So quite often they'd be resistant, be saying, oh no, I want to stay at home on my screen. I don't want to go to the beach. Don't feel like it. But as soon as they got to the beach and got into that scene and that environment, they were into it and they were fine. And we learnt that. So we knew, okay, if we push them to get there, then it's going to be fine. They're going to have a good time. They're going to have fun. And so we've always had bodyboards, of course, because I've had my own brand, and we've had little boards for the kids and boards of mine, baby boards. And then we've also had like stand-up softboards around, or our friends' boards, but generally more bodyboards. And I've just basically let them choose what they'd like to do and when they'd like to go in the water. So I might like suggest, to my son when he's younger, do you want to come out on the board with me? But if he resists, if he wants to, then great. But if he resists, then that's fine. That's my approach. It's just not to push someone beyond what they're comfortable doing. Yeah. So it's really, so for the kids, it's been really their choice how far they want to take it as far as their surfing lives. And that's really been it. And it's felt very natural, and it's been quite relaxed like that. And we've had a great time. I'd say for the majority of the time, the kids have been just on the sandbank, having a bodyboard, no flippers, and just, that freedom I give them just always allows them to have a good time. They're having fun. They're not getting upset, getting pushed too much. They're not getting wiped out beyond their capability. If they don't want to go out further, that's fine. I just stay with them. And then, so just recently, my eldest son, at age 12, he's just decided by himself that he wants to bodyboard. He wants to come out with me. He wants me to teach him all the tricks. He's a bit million miles an hour, so he wants to learn mastery in the first session. So I have to tell him, no, you got to slow down a bit. We got to learn to paddle into a wave first. We got to learn to duck dive, and then we'll work on a turn and hand positioning. So that's been really fun. I've loved it that he's chosen it of his own accord, that he has made the decision himself that he wants to dive into it. And of course, I'm loving it, and the fact that he wants to go bodyboarding with me every day in the holidays, that's awesome. And it's even better because it's so pure that he decided that he wants it. There's no spite there. There's nothing negative. So for me, that feels kind of ideal. And then it'll be the same approach for my younger daughter and my youngest son, of just having that bit more relaxed approach, a bit more stand back and listen and feel out what they'd like to do, and encourage
And how old are they?
They're 12, 9, and 1.5.
Yeah. Very cool. We're on the same page. I have 4, 9, and 11. So
okay.
Yeah, I am driving with you. I completely understand. And that bit about your 12-year-old wanting mastery immediately just hit home. My son, my son particularly, he gets frustrated if he can't do the thing the first time. And I'm like, bro, I didn't learn to throw a football overnight. It takes a bit. And kids are are interesting like that. What advice do you have, generally speaking, to the kids out there listening to this? What key bit of wisdom would you like to drop? After all the wisdom you've already dropped in the last 2 hours, but if you could hone it down to a rice kernel.
Yeah, sure. Well, kids are so interesting because they're they're so, you know, they're moving so fast, as you know, and they want to do everything right now, and they want to progress this, and they want to become that, and so they're so aspiration driven, and they're so, you know, performance driven. It's almost impossible to stop the pure things about what they're doing. So yeah, for me, it seems really important to kind of work with that. So yeah, I think for me, in when you ask that question, is it's how much can you pay attention to the kids' needs, having empathy towards how they feel about things and what's going to fulfill their needs and make them happy in a way that's not going to then lead to disappointment. That's going to be something that can be sustained and allow them to move forward in a way that's encouraging and not going to lead to something negative.
Brilliant advice. And my last question for you, Ryan, what is the meaning of life from your perspective at this point in your existence?
Live it up. That's what comes to mind. Yeah, I mean, that to me feels like that's something that's always come to mind for me as far as enjoying life. Like, yeah, obviously things get hard and there's negative experiences. It's unavoidable. So yeah, a huge thing through my mental health experience and, you know, the label bipolar and the emotional experiences of extreme downs and extreme ups. I think a relative thing to talk about on this point, this finish, is, you know, in life, everyone's going to have that. Everyone's going to have negative experiences, positive experiences, negative emotions, positive emotions, at whatever level or extremity or depth. And for me, from my life experience with that, being now at 44, with where the importance of managing the lows, you know, being able to bounce back to at least to neutral, to calm, or to have faith that that's going to come back to calm or positive. And then I think the fun part, then the live it up part for me, is okay. So that part's managed. That part's, I've had experience in that part. I can do that. Okay, so now it's going to go to positive, and I'm going to fucking send it just to get to the strong there. You know, I've just learned that shit. I've been through this hard time. You know, if you're going to go through that shit and you're going to be so down and just struggling so much in yourself, that when you have that opportunity to actually feel good, and it's particularly when it's natural, you know, not talking about, you know, drugs or doing these artificial things or ego, but to actually experience things like surfing. Or for me, I love music, I love dancing, I love getting to nature. You know, I have really high moments just being in nature at times. And for me to feel that emotion coming up, of enjoying that moment, enjoying that experience, to just like open the gates and just let that fill my body, let the emotions just erupt as my spirit coming out, you know, in physical movements, in voice, in screams, in tears, whatever it wants to be. That for me is living it up, is the emotional expression. And I think surfing, bodyboarding, whatever experience you're having in the ocean, to be able to find and allow your spirit to come through in your physical expression is probably the best feeling there is in life for me. To be able to really ride the wave with that expression, with that feeling. And then, you know, if you've had a good ride, you're in a good moment in a magical place, to just celebrate that in whatever way the real true nature of that feeling inside and in your spirit wants to express itself. That to me is living. That's the epitome of living it up.
Ryan Hardy, you just sent this podcast to the moon, man. And I cannot thank you enough for just spilling it out, sharing your soul with us, because you've spoken to me on so many levels, and I know that you're going to speak, or you are speaking to whoever's listening here in the future on just multiple realms of existence. So I bow to you. I thank you for your time today, taking it away from your morning in your beautiful country. And before we go, what is a resource that people you could direct people to that are jiving with what you're speaking and what you're saying? What direction should they go?
Sure. I just have messages on my Instagram, I guess, if anyone wants to reach out. But I feel like the main thing that's coming to mind is just go to the ocean, go and make it and deepen your connection there. And you know, it's this sort of thing where everyone has a unique connection with the ocean and with the universe. You know, when I say that, sing that mantra hum between me and the universe, and everyone has a unique vibration, a unique hum, and a unique voice with their experience in the world. And I really encourage people to tap into that at whatever medium, to find that connection and the joy that comes with that. You know, I feel like that is the most pure opportunity and like communication and experience. And I really am motivated to sort of go further with that and deepen my experience with that, and spread my knowledge and mastery with that. Because, you know, as a coach, that's the opportunity, is to spread your knowledge and your experience for other people to be able to enjoy that experience as well, to be able to live it up in their own unique way, in the way that I'm able to live it up. Yeah. So that's my encouragement, my advice for the day.
Yeah, and clearly bodyboarding is just the scratch of the surface. There's so much more here. Guys, at Hardballs on Instagram, check him out. Crazy footage of him to this day doing gnarly maneuvers in the ocean, and it's something to see. Ryan, I can't thank you enough again for coming on, speaking From Water episode 32, and you're the dude. Respect.
Yeah, no, it's just love talking about it, especially the any of that ocean stuff, you know. And I know that my connection with the ocean, it seems just so much more emotional and stronger, deeper, more meaningful, more impactful than any other experience I have with nature. You know, like I love all aspects of nature. We have beautiful forests and bush here. Every sensory experience of the ocean for me just seems so much more powerful. And I know you resonate with that, and everyone listening, I know, has this love with the water and with the ocean and with the coast. And that's, you know, I just cannot guarantee enough that your life is going to be enriched the longer and the deeper that you connect that.
And just a final point here that resonates hard with me, and I know it's going to resonate with everyone who probably tunes into this podcast. But to the person who might be living in, say, Central Australia, Central America, United States, and they don't know this fact yet, but there's something in my heart that believes that they too can feel this energy, this positive force. I guess, how do we deliver that to them? I guess we do that through this podcast. But then I guess the ultimate question is, why? Why does the ocean do this? And I think we know why, again, because of the power it is, and it's the same thing that's been there since before the dinosaurs, and it will be here after the humans are gone. And it's the only thing in this universe that we know of that has it, and that's the water. And on that note, this earth we have right here, that's all we have. And here you are on the other side of the planet from me, and we're speaking the same language, but even deeper, the same message. So on that note, I would like to again thank you so much.
Thanks, you, Sean. Yeah, love it.
And Ryan, I hope we can stay in touch. And if I'm ever on your side, I'll hit you up. And please, if you ever come to the East Coast, I would love to meet you in person.
Great, Sean. Sounds good. We'll get our kids in the water.
That's right.
So that's
and
where
guys,
the fun place is.
Absolutely. And you have your own line of bodyboards, guys. If you would like to pick up one of Ryan's bodyboards, do you ship to America?
Yes. Yeah. Doing the online service. Yeah.
Excellent. I'll put the link in the description below. And with that, this has been episode 32, Speaking from Water, with Ryan Hardy. And bro, you're the man. Thanks again.
John, yep. See you soon.
All right, bro. Peace.
Yeah.